Welcome everyone to this YPC Connected series event. So this is part of the industry leaders interviews stream, which is where we get to engage with some of the thought leaders in the mining and minerals industry, just to get their thoughts on how they can guide us as we journey through our careers as young professionals. So today I'm very excited to have a great person we're going to be interviewing and a very good interviewer as well. So it's going to be a great session, I believe. So firstly, just to introduce our interviewer, which is Simone, who is a very vibrant, I think some of you might have seen in some of the other SIMM YPC events, very vibrant, talented young professional who works in the minerals industry. Simone has a BSc in chemical engineering from the University of Pretoria. She's currently a process engineer who works on value chain optimization and maintenance of coherent work culture. So she has a great appreciation for that. Simone enjoys building productive teams through the application of expertise and flair, which you'll see come through the interview. And she's given talks before on the within the SIMM on things such as how millennials can play a role in the future of work. So I think she's very much the right person to be conducting this interview today. And then our interviewee for today's session is Gary Lane. Again, some of you might have seen Gary. He's very much active within the SIMM. So Gary has a long CV, but I'll try to summarize it as far as I can. So Gary started out his career as a young civil engineer many years ago. He was born on the 25th of September. I won't say a year, Gary, not to expose you, but at least now people know your birthday.
Thank you.
In Queenstown, South Africa. And yeah, he worked for 10 years for Anglo on various projects as a project engineer in the new business mining, Botswana, De Beers, and Anglo Technical. So he worked across the Anglo-American group. Then Gary went on to do an MBA in 2000, where he left corporate, and he co-founded his first startup, which is Size Corporation. Some of you might know as Business Size Corporation now in 2001. He then also co-founded a tech startup with a venture capital funding called NXGN in 2015, which was developing next generation software products for the mining industry. So Gary has a great entrepreneurial spirit and vision to transform the mining industry. And now he leads a company he co-founded, which is called Boomer Collaborations, as well as some mine at Mandela Mining Precinct, which collaborates to push the global thought leadership around Industry 4.0 and assisting leaders make the right decisions around requirements for Industry 4.0 and the mine for the future. So I think it's very much the right person to be chatting to us today. And I'm going to welcome both of them. So I'm going to ask Gary and Simone to just switch on the camera so they can start the interview. And I'm going to encourage all of you, if you have any questions, just please type them in the chat and I'll be keeping tracks of them. And then at the end, we'll come back to them and then we can get Gary to answer them. Cool. Over to you, Simone.
Thanks for the introduction, Antony.
Wonderful, thanks. Thank you, Anthony. I do feel like I know Gary quite well after your introduction. Gary, let's touch base. I'll give you an opportunity to just share. You know, there's always that question. It's also the first interview question. Tell us about yourself. So maybe you can share firstly on yourself and sharing that and how you feel you answered the question based on the interview scenario, just for young professionals going into the interview environment, having to answer that question. So maybe you can answer it and share your thoughts on answering it.
Okay, all right. So Antony said quite a lot of it already. So I'm quite a passionate person. I enjoy mountain biking, getting out and about. Done a lot of traveling around the world. Very fortunately with lots of clients. So I've traveled quite a lot through Africa, around the world. Had some great experience. Managed to sort of work as a young engineer in Anglo-American when we were still doing these big, massive, mega capital projects. Okay. And again, I had the privilege of working for some incredible leaders that mentored me, where I learned some of my leadership capability. I think that's one of the key things that I would always recommend to young professionals is find yourself a mentor that can guide you in your career. If you've got a boss, the right sort of leader at the right time in your career is quite a critical step, because I did also have the misfortune well, probably the fortune of learning how not to manage people through some of the different bosses I had in my corporate career as well. I think that my advice on that question is make it personal. You know, we're all human. We're all humans. We're not this transactional creatures that when we interview, we've got to make ourselves all look perfect. I think we've got to be real. I think you've got to talk from the heart. You've got to talk about your passions. You know, my view is people that have made mistakes and tried new things are the people that are going to do well. And that would be my perspective on how you answer the question.
Okay, no, well, from the interviewer side, I think I'll give you an A+ for your answer, and also for the analysis of the answer. So well done.
Okay, thank you, Simone.
And just to share a little bit about myself, I know Antony did as well already. So I'm a young professional, so I'm very much in that space where I think you know, you're looking to impact. So hopefully I do represent the group quite well. And Antony mentioned that you started a company. So one of the questions that have come through from our question pool is, you know, how easy is it to actually start your own company? And if someone wanted to actually pursue something like that, where would they start? How do they prepare themselves for that?
Okay, so yes, I mean, I spent the first 10 years of my career in corporate. I fitted the mold of an engineer, you know, and it was about, you know, everything was scheduled, everything had a scope, everything was all defined. And if you threw me outside of my sort of terms of reference, it would be quite nerve-wracking. But I then did an MBA, and I think an MBA, I mean, I did it just to kind of give myself the confidence to try and do something different. So suddenly worked, and when I'd left my undergrad engineering degree from WITS, I'd set myself a target. I was going to work for 10 years, and then I was going to do an MBA, and I actually did it on the 10th year. And then I was exposed, so and that's why, just another point, and I will diverge a little bit as we're talking, always set yourself goals, because the goals is what, and you must have some short-term incremental goals, some medium-term and longer-term goals. So I set that self as a goal, and I achieved it. And it gave me the opportunity to rub shoulders with consultants from McKinsey and Accenture, and with directors of banks in my MBA cohort. And I suddenly realized, wait a minute, geez, I'm as good as they are, if not better.
Great. That's a fantastic realization.
So then that opened my eyes to, there's a whole new world out there. There's a whole world of entrepreneurship and all that kind of stuff. So I went back into Anglo all excited, and I now wanted to be considered something else other than an engineer. And those days, Anglo didn't really know what, you're an engineer and you were on this engineering path. So I then got together with some colleagues, and we decided to start a business. I mean, I don't think we knew what we were getting ourselves into. And I think that's another key point.
As with all good stories, it just starts with an idea and some gusto, and then you kind of just wing it along the way.
Exactly. And I mean, I went from having, I had a desk with a boardroom table in my office at Anglo. I had a secretary sitting next to me, and I went into a little box with one air conditioner, and we shared a desk with 3 of us, and that's how I started the business. Now, a couple of key things is the people you work with, and your team that you build, and that is more critical than the idea. Okay. Because you can make a success out of almost anything. I mean, if you look around in this country, there are thousands and thousands of ideas. Okay. What you've got to do is you've got to find some like-minded people that share the values, morals, and a passion for what you want to do. Because I've got to tell you, startup companies aren't built by people that are transactional, that want everything to be clear and defined and structured. It is built by people that have a vision, people that have a belief in something better, and that's what it takes. And I've got to tell you, you're going to be working through the night. You've got to be totally out of your comfort zone. You're going to tackle things you never dreamed of, in terms of having to build a team, having to engage with clients, explaining your value proposition, all of that kind of stuff. Okay. So yeah, that's kind of how it started, and I learned along the way, and I'm now, now I feel comfortable to start a business. I've now done multiple startups, but the first one was very, very scary, and we did build it up to. If you ever look at Business Science Corporation now, I mean, I did leave. Is about, geez, I think over 300 people.
Sure.
So that is, we
all of
started
that job
in 2000.
employment and opportunity that was created. I think especially in South Africa's economic climate, with the recent unrest and job losses, we need more entrepreneurship in South Africa, and we need more people willing to take on the risk and go through all those hours and use a desk for 3 people. So yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. I recently had some carpentry done at home, and the carpenter, he stayed very late, and I said to him, no, you must go home. And he says, no, only employed people can afford to work 9 to 5. So yes, I'm sure you can relate to that.
And that's the thing about a startup. You've got to go the extra mile. Okay, I mean, I can tell you stories from my first startup where we were involved in major rollouts of projects where other vendors were involved, and the CEO did a spot kind of visit to see how everything was going at 1 o'clock in the morning, and the only people he saw on site was my team. And he says, wait a minute, but you're doing the other vendors' work. Well, we have a deliverable to do, and we will do what we have to do, and that builds, because it's about trust, it's about relationships. People buy things from people they know and they trust. So you've got to be building this network, and it starts with a network of 1 person, and then it's 2 people, and then it's 3 people, and you're building this network because it didn't matter which startup business I've been in. I deal with the same people. It's scary, and he just happens to have a different. I mean, now that's the brand behind me. Doesn't matter. And then what's happening is as you go through experience. I mean, the reason I can do what I can do now is because of what I've done. So the engineering for 10 years gave me skills that I utilize. Then I went and got the MBA, which gave me the confidence. Oh, wait a minute, there's more than just engineering. And then I did economic modeling and consulting, and then I did software development. So the only reason I can do what I do now is because of the experience and because of the team that I have. The team is fundamental.
Okay. Gary, you mentioned a couple of times your MBA. One of the questions that have come up, that young professionals want to know from you is, should people study an MBA, and when? How soon? I've heard a lot of things, some managers say, don't get into an MBA too early. You need to be in the industry long enough. Some people say, oh, just go get it. I think with that varying kind of spectrum, where do you lie?
Look, I'd thought about it long and hard when I was doing my undergrad, and I thought, I need to get 10 years of experience. Okay. And then, and I must tell you, I do feel like you need some experience, because you kind of got to know what it's really like in the trenches before you go and do an MBA. Okay. I mean, as we all know, work is very different to what you think work is when you finish your degree.
Yes.
It ain't anything
very
like,
different.
It ain't anything like what we believe. And and that's just another anecdotal thing. In my startup, I've always hired young professionals. I mean, in size or business corporation, I would just hire up young engineers continually out of varsity. Okay. And that's actually what we're doing here in Vuma and Simon as well. We've actually got a few interns that are working for us. Some of them come and knock on the door and say, we'll work for free. And I say, thank you very much. And they're smart, because they will get a job eventually. Okay. All that's demonstrating is their commitment and their belief in themselves. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And
which is a horrible quality.
Yeah, so I mean, some of them will say, well, no, we're not ready to be hired yet. We want to prove we're going to add value to you. So great, okay. And everyone's going to benefit, and there's a joint value proposition there. They're going to get a job and earn a salary based on their value, and we've got an extended interview period to make sure we've got the right people. So I always hired young professionals. The challenge that you face is, until you've worked in different businesses, you don't know what you have. So you come into a startup, and a startup's not got plush carpets and beautiful offices and secretaries and a reception desk. And you come out of studying and you think that That's what life's going to be like. Air-conditioned office, everything.
Yeah.
And sometimes people, some of and I probably know 12 or 6 people that these young professionals came started working for me. You've got to know what it's about.
Gary, I just want to go on to this question because I don't want to forget it, and it's relevant to what you're saying now. So you're saying you have an extended period where you have your interns and you can assess, right? So one of the questions that popped up was the top 3 most important skills in 2021 that people should demonstrate and develop. So what would you say would be the top 3 most important skills to develop and demonstrate? What are you looking for when those interns come in? What is it?
Okay. Self-leadership. Okay. Fundamental. You've got to be able to have the ability to self-lead yourself in terms of motivation, going and doing research, all that kind of stuff. You know, we have the luxury now of the internet. We can develop skills now by just Googling. All right. The old days of getting skills from training are gone. It's now about experience. Okay. Self-leadership, the thing of always wanting to learn more stuff as well. So kind of getting a broad view. I'm not talking formal training. I'm talking about wanting to go and find out about, because we've got new technology coming the whole time, man. We've got Teams, we've got Microsoft stuff, we've got all these different technologies, and it's just going to accelerate. Is go and find out what's happening, what's all the leading edge stuff that's happening, so that you're at abreast of all of that, and then get a broad base of experience across a whole bunch of different stuff, so you understand people and the management and dynamics around people, understand all the new technologies and how they can be utilized in business, and applying your mind at an analytical level.
Okay.
That's what I mean. You know, a lot of people find it at work at a very superficial level, like a talk the talk, but actually get down and actually apply your mind into critical thinking. And if you can do all of that, I can tell you now, you've got a phenomenal career ahead of you.
Okay, no, fantastic. Thank you for that, Gary. We have a question to say, some people says the market is saturated with candidates who have an MBA. So is it advisable to do it as an employee or rather as an entrepreneur? Would it give one a competitive advantage at work?
Yes and no. So I always say, certain businesses will give you an MBA of experience, okay? If you don't have the luxury of being able to work in an organization that can give you an MBA of experience, then you need to go and do a formal MBA, all right? For me personally, I've never advertised I've done an MBA. The letters after it don't mean anything to me. For me, it gave me personal confidence to do something different, okay?
Yeah.
In reality, what we do now in the startup, and since my 2002, that is an MBA experience. Every day is probably more challenging, more diverse thinking, and more aspects of what I even did in the MBA. Okay.
Okay.
Now, all the young people that join, you know, whether it was SciStorm, or in a lot of other startups, depending on where you go and work, I mean, anyone who came and worked at Vuma is probably getting an MBA plus. Because everything they're learning, organizational behavior, analytical methods, human resources, innovation, entrepreneurship, all of that is literally what we do every single day in our projects, in how we conduct ourselves.
Okay. So Gary, what you're saying is people shouldn't go get an MBA, they should come work for Vuma.
Or find something equivalent. Yes. No, for sure. Look, I don't think, you know, depending on where you're going to go work, and some people on the CV, they see MBA. So there's always going to be an element of gravitas behind that. But I've got to tell you, the world's moving into space where it's about what you can do, it's about your experience, it's about your network, it's how you market yourself.
So coming into how you market yourself, you know, as a young professional in the workplace, what would you say in terms of alignment? So you have mentors, you've got coaches, you have your line manager. and they play a very critical role in your development, as you've already mentioned, right? So how does one build that relationship with their mentor or line manager, and what kind of play does that have in terms of career growth? So just on maybe a comment on whether it's worthwhile and how to do it.
So you've got to put effort in, You've got to put effort into relationships, all right? And it's got to be based on honesty and trust. I mean, that's the fundamental that you need to do. So, you know, honesty and trust. You don't have to be friends with your boss, but have an honest relationship that you're trustworthy, okay? But it extends far broader than that, okay? And as a young professional, if I look back to my career, I mean, all the people that I worked with now are probably all grey-haired and retired, who were my bosses. But, you know, and then they go, oh, then the MBA is built a network. I didn't really build a network out of my MBA. I tell you what you've got to do. Get involved in the industry you're in. So SIMM, as an example, gives a great foundation to start leveraging your network and grow it from there, build your own profile. I mean, get involved in I started off presenting at conferences. It was nerve-wracking, My heart used to be beating in my chest, and I'd think, now, what am I going to say? Am I going to say, welcome, ladies and gentlemen? I'm going to say, good afternoon, everyone. You're just playing it through my head. And so put yourself out there. Put yourself out there. Take a chance. Do something different. So present it right. You don't have to write a whole technical paper. There are SIMM conferences. You can even just put a presentation together. So present on a project that you've been doing that's added value. And it does take extra effort, because we are all busy in the busyness of business, okay? And days go by.
I like the alliteration, Gary.
Yeah, days, weeks, months go by. Before you know it, you're 10 years into career. Now you're in this. You don't have midlife crises at only 50, 53. You have mid-20 crises and mid-30 crises, which are all just reflection points of, oh, I should have achieved more than I have.
Okay.
Don't feel pressure, hey? I got to tell you, people, your career just develops if you just build your network, get your experience, have a short-term goal of where you want to go, get involved in SIMM, get involved in conference committees, present at conferences, put yourself out there, get known.
Okay, no, thank you. Thank you for that, Gary. We have a question from Graham. I'm going to read it out. It's a lengthy one, right? So pay attention, Gary.
I'll try. I must get some more coffee.
Okay. So the question goes, in the current work environment, longer working hours are often seen as more important than working less hours but more efficiently. So this is now in Graham's current work environment. Do you agree with this? And how did you manage to balance your personal or family life with your work while starting your business?
Okay, so very, very good question. Okay, I don't believe in long hours. All right, I think you need to work smart. All right, if you have a boss that manages hours, you know, and not output, it's a bit of a concern. But you're going to work in some environments where there are clock watchers, I'm afraid. And it was a bit of a debate I had with my other directors. I've never been a clock watcher. I don't care what people work. If they want to take a Friday afternoon off, they take a Friday afternoon off. Here's one thing I used to always debate, is that if you've got empowered people and they know that you're worrying about output and you're worried about hours, you never miss a project deadline ever. You'll never miss a project deadline, because they will work the weekend, they will work the night, and they will make sure that they meet the deadline, because you know that when things are a little bit quieter, they won't work as hard. Okay. My view is, the minute you make people work a specific amount of hours, you'll miss every deadline, because then they say, hey, we don't work nights, we only work day, because you're forcing them to work a certain time. So it's interesting. I mean, I could proudly say most projects I've ever delivered in my whole career have all generally been delivered on time. I'm not talking about only myself, my teams, because of the way that we manage them and that they own the outcome. So it's about working on the right things, being smart about the work, and it's not about hours. You can't sustain long hours. People will burn themselves out. There are times, so I must just put a caveat on there. I mean, at the moment, my team is working crazy hours. working 14-hour days, but it's for a 3-week period for a major company turnaround. Okay, so we're going to dig ourselves in and we're going to push, and then we'll take it easier for a while. Everyone's working from home, you know, people take breaks when they can, Friday off or whatever it might be. Okay, so it's not about hours. Okay.
Okay, no, thank you. I do believe, Graham, if you're still with us, I hope that's answered your question. Okay, so we have another question from Kondwani. What has been the best highlight for Vuma collaboration when it comes to impact to the industry? So what was your best highlight in terms of impact?
Sure. I mean, look, it's hard to say any individual highlight. Look, for me, I really think the fact that I'm working with an incredible team of people. Okay, that for me. And when that team puts together a project and we can add significant value to a client, and you stand at there and present a presentation that will change their business and change the way people think and change the performance of individuals in that business. And we have the fortunate luxury now of working across different industries, and I've been working in the US a bit as well. Okay, we're not unique. We're not unique in terms of mining. With the same challenges we experience every single day in mining in South Africa is happening in high-tech industry in America and in the UK. So no individual, I think every project, when you deliver that final presentation, you add value and you're working with a good team. And when the pressure comes on, the team pulls together, that's powerful.
Okay, so I see you have a big focus and emphasis on people and, you know, unlocking the value of those people. Would you say that your colleagues and your the people who work for you become some form of family?
Yeah, I mean, it does feel like that. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, the business is about the team. The business is about the people. You know, you could argue 4R is not about technology. It's actually about people. It's going to be how we work differently. It's not about tech. It's about business models. It's about work routines. It's about decision making. They do become like a family. And I think, you know, it's not to say you're going to be friends with everybody in the organization, but you've got to trust each other. You've got to have, I think, you know, if you have a look at the Google research, the best performing teams, it's not about PhDs and it's not about all the jargon stuff. It's about one thing only: psychological security. What it means is if you feel safe and you feel that there's trust, you're going to perform best. Because if your human brain, if it's feeling stressed and it feels that there's uncertainty and all of that, you immediately limit your brain's ability to think and be creative and all that. So create an environment where you can make mistakes, you can honestly talk about stuff, you can have proper dialogue, and it doesn't feel like, oh, we're going to be fired. Then you're going to get the best out of everybody. Now, it doesn't say people mustn't perform. They've got to perform, but set the rules of the game right. And it is about people, I'm afraid. I mean, not talking anything specific, but some of my previous startups, the reason I'm no longer involved is because of misalignment of values, misalignment of moral, of issues around that. Some of the divergent views on the value of people, because the people are the business, and that's part of the learning curve. Because I'm here now because I realize the importance of building a team to deliver on the value proposition.
Okay, no, I appreciate it. Thanks for that. I see we do have another question. Would Vuma collaboration consider teaching high school or university students divergent thinking? Would it be done as a form of CSI, or would a government contract be needed? Personally, Kondwani mentions he thinks that this kind of thinking needs to start early in a professional's life.
So we've got an experiential learning lab at Mandela Mining Precinct. It's all about teaching systems thinking, and we offer a whole bunch of programs around skills and capability development that crosses from sort of the core skills of maximizing system performance, which is systems thinking and circular thinking, to facilitation and conflict management and all that stuff. I mean, that's one of the core business we got. Vuma's the client-facing consulting arm. So we've actually had high school kids from Matric come through and do our program. Our intention is to offer it to universities as well. So definitely there's an opportunity. At the moment, our undergrad, specifically engineering, is teaching detail complexity. It's teaching us to be very focused and very detailed, but in silos. We've got to get this thing together where we've got a more integrated engineering discipline where we're thinking from a systems perspective. We're still going to need specialist engineers in their silos, in their detail problem solving, but we need more systems thinking perspective where we see the whole picture.
Okay. On divergent thinking and careers, firstly, I think I maybe should have started with this. Apologies to everyone who's online, but what would you define divergent thinking as for people who are with us who don't really have a personal definition for it?
Okay, so I'll give you my definition. Just don't go with the flow. Don't go with the flow. Don't go with current norms. I mean, I was saying, disrupt the status quo to improve the future. So it's don't just do what everyone else is doing. Okay, the norms that are set up in, I mean, when I say that, there are rules and regulations and laws. But I'm saying, I mean, even when I worked in Anglo, even though I was in a corporate and I had a boss, I didn't fit the corporate mold. I mean, I thought differently. I was prepared to, as a leader, you've got to stand up. If no one else stands up, someone needs to stand up and someone needs to put themselves out there and think differently to everyone else is doing, and question current status quo. To not just for the sake of it, hey? Because you don't want to just be, don't be the movie critic. Don't be the movie critic, okay? For the sake of the movie critic.
Okay.
It's got to be for the improvement and better off.
Okay, no, I appreciate it. Another question that we received is, how can I grow within my current company and develop as an intrapreneur?
Okay, very, very good question. I think whether you're inside an organization or outside an organization, significant opportunities exist, okay? It's about communication. It's a mindset, eh? It's a mindset to say, I'm not going to just work in my box that's defined by my job description, okay? And that's why at Vuma we don't have job descriptions, okay? Because you do what you have to do. And then, so it's a mindset shift. I can make a difference. I can do things differently, all right? And then put yourself out there. Go and put a presentation together and go and speak to your boss. Do some lobbying around, and now don't create politics. That's the thing. I mean, you've got to understand it, but you've got to go and have an honest discussion, put yourself out there, make your name known, put something together that shows an improvement that you can do in the business, and start with something small, and then it'll just be built from there, and then they're going to know, oh, wait a minute. Joe Soap is the guy that always thinks differently, and he delivers every single time, and he's a safe set of hands. And he's trying to improve how we do things, maybe on business processes or product mix, or I've got an idea on how we can improve our mining productivity levels, or the maintenance on the drill rig, or something like that. Start with something and build it from there.
Okay, so it's the concept of building and gaining confidence. And how would you say, what advice would you give a young professional who, let's say, has a lot of internal negative dialogue or self-doubt? And I think as people, we it's almost like a normal thing that we've all experienced at some point. But should a young professional be in a space where they don't yet have that self-belief, but they want to develop it? What advice would you give them?
Look, if there are external factors, so unfortunately there are external factors. I mean, if you're working for certain types of bosses, okay. I mean, I have, unfortunately, if you're working with a very narcissistic, sociopathic type person, you're in a very negative space, okay. Especially that person's quite sociopathic. My advice is get out. I'm not anyone to leave their jobs here, but you've got to remove yourself, okay? Because that is just going to continue, and there's nothing you can do about it, I'm afraid. Okay, and unfortunately, there are quite a few of those in corporates, and they will destroy your confidence. They will destroy your self-belief, your sense of self. Once that's removed, you know, it's about small wins. Celebrate the small wins. Pat yourself on your back for the small wins, and you will gain and grow confidence through that. Especially if you've got a very supportive. You know, let's differentiate then between managers who manage process and leaders who lead and empower. If you're working for a good leader, that will build your confidence. That will help you, especially if you are trying new things and putting yourself out there.
Okay. No, I do believe that was a meaningful response, and I do hope that, you know, everyone online can relate and take a piece of that with them and help build their own confidence, because, as you say, that's the first step. And
Yes.
It's critically important to get that right before you take on massive things. And it's also through the small wins that you gain and build that confidence further. So,
and if you get something, and if you get something wrong, you've got to make mistakes to be able to grow. All right. So don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to try. Okay.
Yeah.
You can say, I mean, you know, if somebody's made a mistake, they've learned from it, they won't make that mistake again. So that it's actually been creating an environment where you are prepared to try new things. We can be innovative and we can gain confidence in that journey.
Okay, so it's also about the environment. The environment's critically important. It's almost like a plant. You know, it can be a great plant, but if you're going to put it in terrible soil without nutrients, without those things, it's not gonna grow.
Yeah, it needs a good foundation.
100%. Civil engineering coming through.
My roots are always be concrete.
I see that. We do have another question. So related to the comment about the mid-30s partial midlife crisis, which is currently happening. As an engineering professional, this is happening, I believe, in the professional environment. What has been your approach to dealing with such moments in your career journey, and how have you moved through positively? Are these midlife or, you know, mid-10-year life crises, are they avoidable? And how do you set goals?
Okay, I just went and bought a mountain bike and joined all the other 50-odd somethings all having midlife crisis.
Wow, so buy a kayak, join a club.
Yeah, convertible BMW. No, so look, I think they're good. It's a time for reflection. Okay, it's that little knock on the head that says, okay, assess where you are. Because if you think about it, you know, if you're in your 20s, you're establishing your career, you're getting experience, all that type of thing. Okay, then you get into your 30s, and now suddenly you get married, you have children, and now you want cash flow because you want to buy the house and everything. So there are different pressures, you know.
Yes.
And now you're not feeling you're earning enough money. Should I change jobs? And I feel like I'm not being promoted. Then you get into your 40s, and now you think, wait a minute, I'm adding lots of value to this business. You know, I'm adding value. I'm creating IP. I want to benefit from capital growth, and that's when you start talking about, I want shares and equity in a business. You know, so that I can build wealth from when I retire. So every phase of your career has got different sort of areas, and I think that goes back to the question that was asked earlier about work-life balance. There is no such thing as work-life balance, okay? At different stages in your career, you're going to be working more and less. So in your 20s, you know what? You're establishing your career, you're going to probably work long hours and all of that. And then in your 30s, you're married and you've got kids and you want to try, but there's that pressure. And you've got to be careful when you burn yourself out as well. Most people end up burning themselves out somewhere, probably in their 30s when they get married and have children. And that's probably part of this midlife crisis. We burnt ourselves out. We've worked long hours. We haven't earned the salary we want.
Yeah.
Sit down and you might need a coach, but sit down and just work out where you want to be. What do you enjoy? I mean, get a list on a piece of paper. What do you enjoy about your job? What do you enjoy about your job as a starting point? Or where do I want to be? Where don't I want to be? You know, what doesn't matter what, but helps you start thinking through, and then speak to people. All good people, all successful people in the world have asked for support and asked for help. Pick up the phone and phone somebody that has been through it and give you some advice.
Okay, no, Gary, I think that's a good answer. And you know, that midlife crisis period, it could feel quite daunting, and therefore I think that list and actually bringing it down to something tangible like a piece of paper, so that it's not just all in your head, I think is a good thing. So definitely I would advise the same.
Koki pen, a whiteboard and a Koki pen, and draw pictures.
Yes.
This is very powerful.
Not a permanent one, hopefully. Have you made that mistake too?
Oh yeah, many times. Many times.
Right.
I've done it in client boardrooms.
Wow. Okay. It's like, this is the lasting impact we're going to make at your company.
Exactly.
Great.
I'll sign it to the bottom right corner.
Oh, okay. So another question that we have is, what approach do you have for someone who has burnt bridges and was found to be quite inquisitive in the process of self-development, especially in a case where you are more competent than your manager with some business aspect? Okay, so I think just rephrasing that, this person has burnt bridges with their manager because they felt that they were more competent and that was the situation, and they were found to be inquisitive in the process of self-development. So in this scenario where, you know, you're not always going to get along with your line manager, and sometimes you may have strengths that your line manager just does not, and those are strengths that align with your personal values, and they're strengths that you really believe are required to do the role. How do you handle that?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Hey? It's very tough. I've been through this myself. You know, if you're working for a manager who's in themselves insecure in their role and you are really performing well, you know, that they're actually going to try to put you down because you may be making them look bad. It's a challenge, eh? And you know, this is where you do have to understand that we're dealing with humans and we're dealing with emotions, and your boss has got emotions. And you've got to be quite cognitive of that. I mean, if you think about what is the job of a leader is to develop other leaders and to make them better than you. And you've got to be confident enough that, and sometimes it doesn't work out, because if you end up, and I have had that happen to me, where I grew someone up for many, many years and built up his confidence. And as soon as he was in a position of power, he just turned on me like a rabid dog. And that was because he had, unfortunately, and there were some hard lessons I had to learn, and it was one of the businesses I left. For him, as soon as he was in a position of power, I never realized, and I was warned, he had very sociopathic tendencies, and it's a power struggle there. Eh? So immediately he wants to have more power than someone else, and the reality is these are all life lessons. These things happen. You're dealing with different personalities. You just got to be conscious of the fact that there are different people. You know, if you are always honest, you know, build a trusting relationship, but unfortunately, it's not always going to work. And you've got to get knocked down, stand up again, and move forward. And, you know, learn from the past, and then, because you can't change the past. If you've been to if you've had a bad experience in a business, that's it. So reset, learn, focus on the future. I'm sorry, my internet suddenly said it got unstable. Is it right there?
Yeah, no, I saw you went a little robotic for a second, but I think I did catch the last bit of what you were saying, to say that we can't go back into the past. I see clearly you're going into the future, being so robotic. Bad joke, sorry. Engineering sense of humor.
I'm now robotic.
You see,
I'm 4IR, exactly.
They're just so connected. I get you, Gary.
Yes.
Okay, next question. Let's see. What was your exit strategy when you made the decision to leave corporate and be independent?
Well, it was my MBA. Okay, my MBA opened my eyes to there's more, and I wanted to get into business and not be seen as an engineer. Okay, and then I started speaking to people and connected with two guys who were consultants, and that's how we started our first startup. I mean, if I look back now, I mean, we never did any of the things that you're supposed to do in your MBA, set up a clear business strategy and vision and all that. We kind of naively, I mean, I was 31.
Yeah.
I was 31. It was kind of like, well, we'll do anything that makes money. Now, we're obviously within a certain confines.
Oh, no, of course.
But yeah, the exit strategy was the MBA, and then we just started.
Okay, I think it can be a bit challenging to in almost that transition phase. Okay, so I can imagine if I just take the question a little bit further, so you've got this work time where you're trying to prove that you absolutely love your company, you could never think of anything but, and now you're in a position where you've created business, and now those are kind of syncing. It's almost like how one song fades out while the other song begins. It's that transition. And I think from what you've said, I would say honest communication and sharing that, you would want to leave. Is that the kind of conversation you had, just from a practical level?
So when you hand in your resignation, okay,
yeah,
then there's a big shock, all right, and Anglo-American, there was this shock and horror, and I've got to tell you, by the time I handed my resignation, and what was interesting is that it was actually the Anglo's first restructuring they did in 2000 into 2001. So they were retrenching almost 700 people, and so in the middle of me finishing my MBA, they were going to then start retrenching and voluntary retrenching. So I thought, oh great, I'll just voluntarily retrench myself. So I put my voluntary retrenchment in, and then they said, no, you can't, because I was earmarked as one of the people to stay. So I tried everything to get retrenched. I flipping went to the directors. I tried everything to
Please retrench me.
Please retrench me. And there was nothing I could do. So, so ironic. So I resigned, and then it was like, oh my goodness, you can't resign. We'll do whatever you want. We can send you to London. And I said, well, look, I didn't resign. I didn't resign to force your hand. I resigned because I made my decision. I'm sorry, that was it. And I left on the same day that 700 people left on being retrenched. I left on that same day. And instead of walking away with a check, because the rest of them walked away with a check, I had to pay back my whole MBA. So I had to pay them a check for 120,000 Rand to leave. Whereas everyone else
I understand why you requested to be resigned or retrenched.
Exactly. Yeah, no, for sure. So I had to pay back my MBA. So I paid back the full MBA of 120,000 Rand, and left in the same day as they all got retrenched. Look, I gave them, I had 5 months of discussion with them around career opportunities. I tried everything. I went to different companies within the group, and they just didn't have, they weren't set up to know what to do with someone who had entrepreneurial skills, who wanted to do things differently within the Anglo of the time.
Okay, I do think companies are becoming a little bit more open to the idea of employees coming up with entrepreneurial ideas, and I think that's really a great movement within corporate currently. Okay. Oh, this is a good one. I see my comments on don't get an MBA, work for Vuma collaborations has stirred the pot a little. So the question is, how can one position themselves to join your company? Do you headhunt new candidates or accept cold calling?
Hey, all of the above.
Okay.
So we're a growing business. All right. We do want good people. I've got 2 interns at the moment that are working for us. They might even be on this call, so interesting to see. And if somebody thinks they're good and they think that they are who can work in an unstructured environment with no job description, they are be able to self-lead themselves, they can apply themselves, you know what? Pop me a mail.
Okay. So we'll, through perhaps the admin in the background, maybe Antony can facilitate just sharing your email across. Okay, wonderful. We have another question. Are you ready? I feel like I've been firing. Do you need
No, that's fine. No, that's cool. I'm good. As long as you still okay.
No, I'm perfectly fine.
Cool.
I would say I do this for a living, but I don't. I'm a
okay, well, you're doing very well,
process engineer for a living.
Cool.
Okay. Sorry, Gary, what was that?
No, I said cool. That's great.
Okay, cool. So the question is, what is your outlook for the mining industry in South Africa and in Africa for a young professional who's not sure about where to invest their energy in terms of personal career development? Where do you see future needs that young professionals can invest in? Okay,
so quite a lot to cover. So the outlook for mining is positive, right? Because I'll hold up my cell phone. Did you know that this thing has about 25 different minerals in it to make it? Right.
Okay.
21 of those minerals are available in South Africa in rare earths. 23 of them are in Africa, all right, in rare earths. Platinum is probably one of those next generation, or the PGMs is next generation green metals. We have 80% of the world's resources and reserves. Nothing in the nothing in the digital, nothing in green power, solar, wind, your air conditioning, every single thing we do, and it's going to become even more, is dependent on mining. Okay, so that's part one. Yes, we have some challenges in South Africa around legislation and we haven't been investing, but this is where I think there's a big opportunity. We just need to all try contribute to that. So that's why I'm part of the SI members. It's why I'm outspoken. It's why I give my input on where I think it will go. So very positive outlook. We need more systems thinking skills. So what I mean is to understand how all of this fits together from an organization perspective, from all these different technologies, and how this whole thing works to create an organization that can really perform in an increasingly complex world. We've got more volatility in commodity prices, which means the organization needs to be more agile. We've got competing interests for skills. There's going to be a major global skills shortage. We're talking hundreds of millions of people shortage globally with these types of skills, and mining's competing against them. Sure. I mean, as financial services and Google and all of these places are great, because where would you rather go with, Google or a mining company?
It's a challenging question. Wherever they're hiring would be my answer.
Okay, but if you were given both, so here's the thing: we've got to make mining
definitely.
So we've got to make mining sexy again. We've got to be able to compete. We've got to be able to attract the right skills, and the skills we need is to have this more holistic thinking. We need to develop some skills and capabilities around systems thinking, how to maximize operational performance, and how we configure an organization of the future that can maintain and sustain that performance. We still manage operations in silos, with siloed KPIs, with all of those challenges. And the skills required is those systems thinking, holistic, divergent thinking skills.
You actually addressed one of the questions, which was, what would you say is the most valuable experience to get in my career? So would you say systems thinking experience? And
yeah, look, I think probably the experience is probably I mean, you need technical skill, but the people skills, I mean, you need to, obviously there's layers of experience, probably some skills and capabilities around systems thinking, integrated thinking, all of that. Then understand facilitation skills, how to effectively run meetings. I mean, I don't think we have very good skills around how to plan and run meetings. You know, it is a really good book everyone should read called The Leadership Pipeline.
Okay.
You know, and it just shows you that leadership's not one step. You know, there's a pipeline of going from a really technically capable person that can do work through the different levels of managing doers, managing managers, functional leadership, business leadership, enterprise leadership. And there's completely different skills that you have to develop for every one of those levels. And you've got to appreciate what those skills are as you develop through your career.
Just the author of that book, Gary.
I don't know the offhand.
Do you remember?
Okay,
no, that's all right.
No, while you're interviewing me, I'll find it. Don't worry. So ask me the next question.
So the people working for Google are enabling you currently.
Yes, I'm quickly Googling it while you're interviewing me.
Fantastic. I see that we have 4 minutes left on the call, and I'd just like to ask that if anyone online would like to ask a closing question or two, I'm available and my eyes are on the Q&A. So while Gary's Googling, we will give you a second to input any last questions you may have. So
it's by Ram Charan and Steve Drotter and Jim Noel. That leadership pipeline, how to build the leadership powered company. And I got to tell you, if I think back through to my career, this defines all of the, you know, because remember, when you get a promotion, you're not getting a promotion because you can do the new job. You're getting a promotion because you've got the potential to work the new job. And then you've got to know what skills and capabilities you need to be able to develop to be able to achieve it. Because once you can do the job, then you must get a promotion. Well, not must, but then you move to the next level.
Yes. Okay, no, wonderful. I think especially in the position that young professionals are in, where they're in a space where they're definitely moving up that pipeline or within that pipeline, I think such a book could really be valuable. Okay, this is going to be our last and closing question.
I've enjoyed this. The time went fast, Simone.
It did. We can do this again sometime. Don't worry.
No, with pleasure.
So the question is, would you say that the work that you do falls under management consulting?
Not in the traditional sense, okay. You know, the traditional management consulting are guys who come in and just advise management with a few PowerPoint presentations, okay. And please forgive me if any of you work for any of those consulting companies that do that. I think the key here, and that's where our differentiator is we work right through the organization. So we right from the shop floor, right through to the executive level. That's key. But also tangible, actual implementation on the ground, because that's where companies battle. Because you can get the most amazing PowerPoint presentation of what your strategic imperatives must be, what projects you should do, and they can do a nice, as the consultants love, 2x2 matrices with easier value-adding, non-value-adding projects, you know, the whole spiel. And then you will find that very little of that is implemented. Because change is tough. We don't like to change. We do not have an appreciation of what it does to actually change how people in organizations work, how organizations work. You know, change is great for anyone else other than me, hey? So, you know, managers go, oh no, everyone must change. Well, it starts at the top. It's about asking different questions of the organization, how we do performance management, how we set up KPIs, how we, you know, everything around that needs to change. So, yeah.
And I think that plays nicely into systems thinking, because in order to apply systems thinking, you need to do the groundwork. You need to understand what is the system, so I'm a process engineer, so I want to say, where's your block flow diagram, where are things flowing, how's things working? And then you can say, what are the dependencies? So this is dependent on this, and then that particular stream has its own internal dependency. And then through systems thinking, basically looking at the whole system and saying, oh, okay, it's not this input that's the problem, it's actually this one with a dependency on that. And I'm listening.
Yeah, so
I saw some sparks.
Yes, no, so what I wanted to say is you've hit the nail on the head, right? Remembering that every single business there is systems diagram for every single business, whether it's mono core skills that everybody should value stream mapping. So
I think the network was a little bit of an issue there. Yeah, Gary, I think you're back with us.
Oh, okay, I'm back. Sorry, it's my daughter obviously doing the homework, her schoolwork downstairs. It's grabbing on my internet.
No, that's all right.
You've hit the nail on the head. I mean, there's a systems diagram of every single business across any industry. One of the skills we should all learn is value stream mapping. I would recommend everyone goes Google's value stream mapping, because I think that's a fundamental starting point for understanding the business.
Okay. No, Gary, I've had a great time chatting with you, and I can see by the sheer number of questions that we've had, and the engagement, people were popping up questions here and there, and that just means that they felt that they could engage with you, and I think that's quite a compliment.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you very much, and thanks for the questions. I enjoyed answering them.
No, thank you to the whole team, behind the scenes, on the scene, everybody. I think I'm not sure, Anthony, are you going to come back on, or may I close from my side?
You're more than welcome to close, Simone. Okay,
we just wanted to see your handsome face once more. All right, thank you. Gary, we appreciate your time with us. We'd like to give you the opportunity just to maybe share a last word or two, and then we will close.
Yeah, so I think thanks for the opportunity, and thank you, Antony and Simone. I really enjoyed it. I'm more than happy to chat again on any of these discussions. And if anyone wants to, I see Antony shared my email address, so please feel free to reach out to me. I think the one thing that I would like everyone just to take away is you must take responsibility yourself for your own career. All right, the company is not going to do it for you. You own it. It links into that thing of self-leadership. Don't blame the company, don't blame the system, don't blame the country, don't blame the government.
Don't blame your parents. I think that's one that we always do.
It's you own it. You own it.
Okay, so we're all effectively CEOs already.
Yes, of ourselves, exactly.
Of ourselves, exactly. Okay, cool. Gary, it was wonderful to chat with you. Anthony, thank you for the wondrous introduction. And I see Gary has definitely lived up to the introduction that you gave, as big and magnanimous as it was. Enjoy the day further. And just thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Thanks, Gary. Thanks, Simone.
Thank you again. Right, next everyone for the questions. Cheers.